Good evening. It's Jules Wyman here from juleswyman.com, and I am just going to check that this is actually going live. I caught myself a little bit on the hoof here with not getting myself as organized as I usually am when it comes to this time on a Monday night. How are you doing? So if I have never had the opportunity to meet you before, it's very, very odd angle and lighting. I'm just going to move this because I look a little bit, I think it looks a little bit Halloween. Maybe it's me because I've got an orange top on and I look like a pumpkin. Whoops. Now you see the ceiling. There we go. Isn't that joyous for you? See, I told you I wasn't prepared. That's what happens when you have a full-on day. So, which is ironic considering the conversation and the topic that I'm going to be sharing with you this evening. So let's pretend that first sort of like minute didn't happen, and let's start again. This is the actual proper bit. We'll start it right now. Good evening. Jules Wyman here from juleswyman.com. How the devil are you? Good evening, Mr. Dickens. How lovely to have you here. How are you, sir? Been a while since we've had the opportunity to catch up. I hope that you're doing well in all of the craziness of what is going on. So yeah, how are you? If you are joining live, then please do join Paul. That sounded like P-U-L-L then, Paul even, and say hi, join in. And even if you're watching on the replay, please do the same, because I do always come back and say hello and join in the conversation, even if it's on the replay. So yes, I'm looking forward to the retreat as well, Paul. Really looking forward to it, actually. So how are you doing? And that is going to be something I'm going to keep asking you this evening. And the main reason being, let me give you a bit of background as to what's been happening over the last week, really, in particular, because it's been quite an interesting time for myself in relation. So since we last spoke, I have been very busy with work, which is lovely because I'm very blessed to love what I do. But I have also had family things happening, in the sense of I had a bereavement a few weeks back. My wonderful granddad, who I spoke about a few weeks ago as well in the episode talking about losing a loved one. He migrated, as I like to refer to it. He was 102, nearly 103, only 3 more months left, and he would have made 103. And so I was down at the family funeral. And it was interesting because I was very aware for myself how much driving. My family live about 200 miles away from where I live. So the driving, the getting things sorted from a work perspective to take the time out, organising myself there. There's various other things I was organising. And one of the things that I have been doing regularly for myself, but also with clients, is to get them to stop, pause for a moment, and genuinely check in with how you are, how you actually are. Because I know that when we ask that question, or when we are asked that question, we very often just give a rote standard answer, automatic, without even really thinking about it. Fine, okay, tired, whatever our standard answer is. Good evening, those of you that are joining live. Please do join Paul so that he doesn't think it's just me and him, or maybe he wants it to be just me and him, I don't know. But I've just looked at your profile photo, Paul. You look like you're in Men in Black or some other kind of. Good evening, Sandra. How lovely to have you here. You look very mysterious with behind dark sunglasses on your profile photo, Paul. I'm liking it. Good evening, Sandra. I hope that you are well. It's been a while since I've had the opportunity to speak with you as well. So yeah, I have been inviting and putting in practice for myself to pause and genuinely stop and ask the question, how am I, or how are you? And the reason being is that I think that we are caught up in a kind of frenzied way of living. And I think we're caught up in automation. I think we're caught up, and what I mean by that is that we don't stop and think. We just splurge the next thing out, and then the next thing out, and then the next thing out, rather than stopping and thinking. I think that we're also, I think there's a lot, or it certainly seems from my perspective and the conversations, the coaching conversations that I've had with clients over the last few weeks, is there seems to be a lot of demands, pressures, requests happening. And I think the situation of confusion of where are we, what's happening, what's going on, has exacerbated that. It's like it's put a magnifying glass. Yeah, that's what I do mean, magnifying glass. I've just realized I haven't got the banner rolling. A magnifying glass going onto that particular part of our lives. And I think because of that, what I'm noticing is a lot of people aren't pausing. They're not checking in with where they're at. Good evening to those of you that are joining live. Do drop down and say hi, like Paul and Sandra, and that includes those of you on the replay. And also those of you on YouTube as well. And I think that even if it's just for this minute, it's important for us to pause and to check in, and to do that on a number of different levels, to check in where we are physically. So first and foremost, what's going on in your body. So I did this earlier today, and I noticed because I've been working from home today, and my chair at home is a dining room chair. It's not an office chair. And so therefore it's not really fit for purpose to be sat at. It's not ergonomic to be sat at all day. So I noticed that whenever I got up, that really what was helpful, what my body needed physically, was to stretch. So I did various different exercises, a little bit of yoga, a little bit sort of like just exercise, aerobic-y sort of things, to stretch my body, to help the physical energy of my body to fire that up and give it some more fuel. So just as I'm talking now, and you're listening to this, whether you're listening to it live or whether you're listening to it on the replay, whether you're just listening or watching the video, it doesn't matter. But as you're listening to this, just check in with your body. So go from your feet all the way up to the top of your head very slowly, and just check with every aspect of your body. I mean, I know, for example, that my feet, not so much today, but certainly a few days ago, because I was on my feet a lot, they really needed some TLC. They needed some massaging, they needed some connection and rubbing. And so that's what I did for myself. But I wouldn't, if I hadn't have had the awareness of that, if I hadn't have been connecting and checking in, then I wouldn't have noticed and would have just kept plowing on and plowing on. And I think one of the reasons, keep checking whilst I'm talking, one of the reasons that this is important is that when we're not checking in, things can then happen without us having an awareness. And sometimes these are things that we potentially could have done something about earlier. So if we can bring a level of awareness into what's going on, then we can start to look at how we can do things that can be resourceful and helpful for ourselves. Let me know if this is making sense, by the way. So once you've gone all the way through, I think you've heard me say this plenty of times before. If you've watched any of the videos, I do think that first and foremost, a great place to always stop from a physical perspective, always start, not stop, because I don't want you to stop breathing. I want you to start breathing and taking some deep breaths, because physically that can at least help calm your body down and maybe access some more energy and resources. But how are you doing? Honestly, how are you doing? Because one of the things that and feel free to share, by the way, if you want to, if there's anything that I can support you with, you can either comment on here, comment on YouTube, or you can message me direct. Because one of the things that I'm noticing when I'm checking in with people, clients and friends and family members as well, and really checking in for myself, is that there seems to be a lot going on and a lot to digest. And I think one of the things that we're grappling in with that is that could be walking people toward burnout or overwhelm or anxiety, or places that they're not necessarily feeling strong or resilient. So once you've checked in physically, check in emotionally. What's going on for you? And if any of you have ever done any of the work with me around emotions, you'll know that I believe, and have not found a reason not to believe yet, that emotions come from your thinking. So really and truly, that's what I'm asking you to look at, is what emotions are coming up for you, and therefore then what stories are being told to create those emotions, and check in with what those emotions are right now. And check in whether they're accurate or not, because I think that very often we can jump to a standardized answer. Oh, I'm just stressed, or I'm anxious. People don't tend to say stressed anymore. They've upgraded it to anxious, or I'm experiencing anxiety. It's the same as people don't seem to say that they're sad anymore. They say that they're depressed. And yet when I question even people that have been, good evening, Jackie, how are you? Even when I check in with people that are, have been experiencing high levels of anxiety, and I start to question them, thank you who was ever doing the likes, by the way, that they start to recognize that emotionally they could get some clarity and be far more accurate. Good evening, Emily. That what I notice we end up doing, or can end up doing in that conversation, is actually they can get clearer. So they end up kind of degrading themselves. No, that's not the right word. Descaling down from being high levels of anxiety to recognizing that, yeah, they've got some worries, and okay, we can address those worries and go from that point, rather than it being, oh, high alert. And that's important to do. So when you're checking in, and again, I'm going to keep saying these 4 areas that I'm inviting you to look into. And my encouragement is that, even though I'm still talking, is to be thinking in for yourself, checking in for yourself. So we've done physically. And what about emotionally? You know, what's going on for you? What emotions are springing to the fore really quickly? Because you know, this is a strong pattern that I'm noticing with the people, that the trainings that I've been delivering online for various people in various levels, different industries, yet there's the same or similar patterns. Good evening, Rob. Not seen you for a while, my lovely. Shared 12 times because sharing is caring. Bless your heart. Thank you so much, sir. That what I'm noticing is that there are some very strong themes that are coming out from people over and over again around anxiety, burnout, feeling pressured. And I understand that. I can get an understanding as to why that's happening at this point for a lot of people. So it's important for us to just check in with where we're at. So checking in physically, checking in emotionally, now checking in mentally. So think about how your thinking is. What is your cognitive processing? You know, is that happening at fast? Emily, you've just said about, you know, switching back to old patterns too easily. You know, well, what are those patterns? What are the thinking that's happening there? What is that process? And none of this, you know, even if you notice that you're really tense physically, you don't criticize for that. It's just an awareness. If you notice that you are up there with anxiety, or however you're describing it, it's just awareness. Notice it. First and foremost is have awareness. And the same with anything that we go through, is have that awareness. What's that thinking process? That mentally, where are you at mentally? Have a look at that. And then finally, to be looking at from a spiritual perspective. So, you know, what's your level of motivation, or even your connection to faith, for example? I know that's something I've been challenged on today, personally, and needs to be looked at and yeah, needs to be looked at, wants to be looked at. And I don't think one of the things that I'm noticing is that people don't seem to do this often enough. We don't seem to be hitting that pause for that moment. It doesn't have to be, you know, take an hour out. You don't need to. I mean, if you've watched any of my videos, you know I'm not into, right, okay, right, let's go and take an hour out. Don't get me wrong, you know, you are looking at somebody who loves doing week-long retreats and various things like that. But I do also recognize that in the whole purpose of these videos is to plant some seeds to get you thinking, to start looking at how you can do things differently, or look at what maybe needs to address, and therefore then what you can do about that. And I think that what I'm noticing, and this happened very recently with a new client, and he was he said, but at the end of the session, so we had our initial session, thank you for all the hearts and the love and likes that are coming in. So he said by the end of the session, one of the things that he'd noticed was how little space and time he gives himself to really talk and be listened to. And I recognize that not everyone has that space to have somebody that they can listen to. Good evening, Matthew. That they don't often have that, and that's important for us to create that space and be that space for other people as well. But he said he hadn't given himself the space to question his rote answers, and he wanted to, what he was realizing was that, you know, rather than those standardized, automated, you know, I'm fine, I'm okay, I'm busy, or whatever the response may be, reaction rather may be, because I was giving him that space and challenging him back, going, okay, well, what do you mean by that? Or what does that look like? Or how's that showing up? It was really giving him the opportunity to take that step back and really, really start to look into where he was at and what he needed at that moment in time. And that's part of the challenge, I think. And it's all too easy when we are being squeezed, pushed, under pressure, compressed, rushed, challenged, whatever word you might use it on, that we resort to an automated way of doing things, and very often we reach out for the things that are going to give us comfort, and they are those automatic behaviors, those what did you call them, old patterns, Emily, you know, and some of that may not be healthy. So it may be, you know, your coffee, your smoking, your junk food, your chocolate, your alcohol, drugs, whatever it may be. And I don't say any of those things from a point of criticism, because I've pretty much done all of them to excess. So I know that pattern, and I know how that comes about. So, but it's about being aware, because all of those, there's plenty of research about all of those, that how they can actually be stressors, and they aren't as the relaxing that we think. Alcohol does not relax us in the way that we think it does. Coffee doesn't, just in the same way that coffee is not the stimulant and the boost that we expect it to be in the way that it is. That's been proven as well. So start to look out for these things, because they're an indicator that something else is needed, something else is required for you to be looking into. Actually, I found out last week, didn't I? If I put it on the screen, it makes it easy for me to read. How can we overcome the feelings of isolation during, I'm finding day after day, my mood is getting worse, and some days are really a struggle. That's a really good question, Rob. And I think it's important for us to make sure that we're getting connection with people. And I don't just mean a quick phone call or a video call, but genuine connection, reaching out and speaking with somebody that you can have a good connection with, whoever that may be, whether it's a work colleague, family member, friend, or even if it is somebody on in a professional capacity. It's making sure that you take that time to network and connect. And I think part of the problem or part of the reason why isolation is being experienced so quickly is because physically, I get that. I live on my own, I work on my own, and I get that. There's a very, very different experience of being in people's company versus speaking like this. And I much prefer being in people's company. And that's not always viable. I get that. But I think one of the things that we can do that can help us is make sure that if it is a virtual connection, be it by phone or be it by video, is to make sure that we are present, make sure that we are with those people. So it might be that you play some games. It doesn't just have to be about checking in all the time and I would also encourage people to not keep having the same conversations over and over again. This is one of the things that I've noticed, is that there's this repetition that, can we just ban the COVID conversation? Is there any need to keep having it over and over again when it's the same things? And if you need to, don't get me wrong, I recognize a lot of you on here need to have conversations around it because of it, work and the regulations, but it is also about you. Are you repeating yourself? Because if you're repeating yourself, if you're saying the same things over and over again, then you're an automation. You're not listening. You're not being present with the people that you're speaking to and speaking with. And be with them. Be present with them. Be curious about how they are, what their day's been up to. What's the most beautiful thing that they've seen today, or what's been their highlight, or what's inspired you, or what brought a smile to your face? And it could be something as simple. So where I'm sat, I'm not going to reach around because I will probably end up pouring the water over my computer, which would not be a good thing. But a friend of mine bought me some flowers the other week, and they are literally just behind the camera. So as I'm looking at the camera, all I can see is that bunch of flowers right behind me. And it's just so important to have little things like that we can engage with. Quite a few months back now, I noticed that and this is when I was working from home, and I hadn't seen anybody physically to have a conversation with for quite a period of time. And that was not helpful. And so I sat and I thought about all the people that I really love and really love their company in my life. And I wrote every single one of them a card. And actually, that was a way of me being able to connect. I'm a bit of an old school person. I love post. I know, I'm sad, but it stems from being a kid and something coming through the post as a kid. And I used to get excited about it. So I love post. Even bills, I love post. So that's what I was doing, was connecting with them in a way that I love as well. And I know the reaction has been very well received for that as well. So Rob said, I think my mood is really affected because I'm hearing the same things over and over again, especially when putting on the news channels or radio channels. So stop putting the radio channels on. I stopped listening to the news. I stopped watching the news probably, oh my gosh, it's more than 10 years ago now. Easily more than 10 years ago. I watched a few of the daily briefings and noticed the impact that they were having on me physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and so stopped watching those. I'm rarely going on social media at the moment. It's more just to check from a business perspective and maybe post something if it brings a smile to my face. But yeah, Jack has just said exactly the same thing. It's one of my friends talks about this in a really lovely way. I think I might have shared this the other week, actually. My friend Lisa talks about it as, if you think about, we think about consumption a lot of the time about what we eat. But if we think about what we're consuming from that media perspective, whether it's mainstream media, whether it's social media, if you imagine it's going onto a plate, never put on your plate, A, what you can't consume, but B, what you can't digest either. Because if you think about that, piling that food up and it going into your system, if you're overwhelming your system, then that's when you were kind of falling asleep and we haven't got the energy to do things that we may be being demanded of us. So bearing in mind, if you're noticing that you're going on social media, and that's why if you're wanting to reach out and connect with people, find other ways, get off. And this is ironic to be saying this. I do appreciate, considering that I'm on social media at this moment in time, but make sure that your newsfeed, for example, on social media, if it's got anything that is, if you're finding that you're following people and they're saying the same thing over and over again, and every time you see their name and that come in, you're like, oh gosh, I can't read any more of that. then just unfollow them for a while. You don't have to unfriend them or have a go at them or whatever. They've got their own world and their own viewpoint going on, and it's not about right or wrong. It just is. But if it's having that kind of impact, then distance yourself from it for a period of time. It's the same with the news. I mean, at the moment, I love music and I love the radio first thing in the morning. It's a habit. We've been conditioned as children to have the radio on. But I noticed that the moment that the news is coming on, I am rushing to whichever device it's on and I'm muting it. Because, I know somebody's going to tell me, or I'm going to see a pop-up of whatever the headline is or whatever the restrictions are or whatever the change is at that moment in time. So I know that I'll get the information. I'm not worried about that. Someone's bound to tell me. And if I really want to know, then I can do it when I'm in a stronger, more resilient state to go and access that information. But if you're just allowing it to keep flooding your plate, then that's not going to be helpful at all. Yeah, exactly. I love that, Emily, that you love post too, is have a balanced diet. Definitely. For pretty much, I've got rid of my television. I just couldn't see the point in keeping it anymore, quite frankly. I don't have a smart TV, don't want a smart TV. And I just couldn't see the point in keeping any more. So quite a few months ago, I can't remember when it was now, I just got rid of my television. And I am watching things, I'm only watching things on demand that make me laugh. I go onto Netflix and that's what I'm looking for, I'm looking for things that make me laugh. I'm going onto YouTube and looking for things that make me laugh. Because that's what I want to be feeding. That's the diet that I want to be digesting at this moment in time, is making sure that I'm keeping that level of things up. It's not about, I'm not going into cloud cuckoo land and la, 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 and pretending nothing else is happening. I'm very aware of what is going on. And I'm also taking care of myself in that process. And my invitation is for you to do the same. Now you've said that it's all negative news they're all telling you about. It's rare they report anything positive. They don't. It's not in their interest to. Quite frankly, it's not in their interest to. I won't go on a rant about my perception of what I think it's all about. And I've been saying this for years that why aren't we celebrating that Johnny did this and so and Sarah did that, and really lovely, great things. Because believe you me, there is some great stuff going on in the world, and that's what I look for. The stuff that I follow on Instagram, for example, is I follow things that inspire me. People. There's a lot of animal stuff, I have to say, because that makes me smile too. So be mindful of that, and when you can only really start. And don't blame the external world for what's going on internally, because it's you that can do something about it, but you can only do something about it when you check in. And that's what I just wanted to share with you this evening, really, is to make sure that you give yourself the opportunity to check in and make sure that you're doing that, rather than I'm just getting something beeping at me and I can't see what it is. So I apologize as my eyes are scooching all over the place. But that's what I'm trying to see, but I can't see what is beeping. Never mind. But that's why I want to invite you to take that time for yourself, check in for yourself, and be honest. How am I doing? And what do I need? And if there's something specific that you need, then, make sure that you find a way of being able to get it, and take care of yourself. As I said at the beginning, I had a full-on week last week and had a family funeral as well, and a lot of driving. So yesterday, I didn't do a great deal because actually I needed to rest. I'd had a few nights of not sleeping very well as well. So I just I was just about taking care of myself in order to be able to be at my best for another busy week and then more driving at the end of the week. So I'm inviting you to do the same. You don't have to, your choice, of course. I love that, Rob. Rob saying, spread some love, press the love heart. It's all needed for us all right now. Yeah, everybody, listen to Rob, press the love heart. And Jackie, I love this. Random acts of kindness make me feel good in this climate. Doing them and reading about them. Yeah, it is those little things that we can be doing. Can you just make sure you say hi to a neighbour, drop something off for them? Can you, if you're going into a coffee shop, I can't remember what it's in coffee on standby. I think there's a cafe in America that does it, where you buy a coffee for yourself and a coffee on standby. So if somebody comes in, hasn't got a great deal of money, they can ask for, is there any coffees on standby? And they can get, you've paid for it for somebody else. So it's those random acts of kindness. I think more than ever, we need to be doing that for ourselves and for others as well. So I hope you found this evening beneficial. If you have, then yeah, make sure you press the like, the subscribe if you're watching on YouTube button as well. And if there is anything that I can help you with specifically, then please do DM me. It does come immediately to me, not to anybody else. So yes, just do that. A belated happy birthday, Rob. Oh, when was your birthday, Rob? Yeah, how did you know, Emily? You stalking Rob? Happy birthday, belated, whenever that was, Rob. And take care of yourselves. It's important, and nobody else is going to do it for you. And yeah, it's important. Take care of you, and I look forward to catching up with you again next week. Bye now.